Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Dolphins Brawl podcast. I'm your host, Louis Sung, and with me, as always, and now in person, is my co-host, Chad Ronnebaum. How are you doing, Chad?
Doing good, Louis. How about you?
I'm doing good. You're looking good, brother, and I really like what you got behind you.
Yeah, my Dolphin paraphernalia.
Yep. Yeah, now we really fit in here. And
now you know I'm a homer for sure.
Yeah, man. All right, and also joining us for this show is a very good friend of mine and a very long veteran Dolphins podcaster, Ron Canniff. How many podcasts have you done, man? Like, I remember Unsquish the Fish. I remember you were on Locked On for a while. What else?
Fin Maniacs.
There is that, yes, Fin Maniacs.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to get that going at some point eventually too, but for now, we're just glad to have you on here. So you don't have quite as a colorful background as my boy Chad here, but I know you couldn't get the blanket going. It wasn't a big enough backdrop.
No, it ended up just looking like a gray blanket. Like nobody would really. Now they probably would have thought I was a Lions fan posing as a Dolphins fan.
No, it's funny because like all the Dolphins fans out there, they're all over the country, but they're everywhere except Florida. That's the strangest thing. You go into Florida and you find Steelers fans, you find Patriots fans, you find some Jets fans. As disgusting as that sounds, but maybe we shouldn't trash the Jets too much considering what the coaching staff is quickly becoming, and we are going to go into that for our next show. Make sure, by the way, real quick, just to go and check out Fanatics under the Bears Brawl. If you want to go check that out and see if you can find any good promo offers, make sure you go and do that, okay? So I've fulfilled my quota on that. So let's go ahead and get right back into the Dolphins football. So when the last show we left off on the fact that the Dolphins were going to hire Chan Gailey as their offensive coordinator, and strangely enough, they haven't actually made the official announcement on that, but we're going to see what's going on with that. Maybe he will be the offensive coordinator, maybe he won't. We're still holding our breath on that. We discussed the Xavier Howard situation, and since then we have not had any news on what's going on, so I'm going to go ahead and assume that Howard has been talked to internally by the team, and they're going to keep him around. They have not heard anything one way or the other, so I'm going to assume he stays. And also, we were discussing what other coaching staff changes needed to be made, as well as some of the draft talk. We'll probably get into a little bit of that during the show. But for now, we now have a lot of other coaching staff changes to discuss, one of which, none the least of which, is Steve Marshall, who is going to be the offensive line coach for the Miami Dolphins. He was with the Jets from 2015 to 2016 as the offensive line coach. Ironically enough, with Chan Gailey as the offensive coordinator with the Jets. And also, even more ironically, the quarterback during those years was Ryan Fitzpatrick for the New York Jets. So it's almost like the Dolphins are building the 2015-2016 Jets like we're trying to build around Ryan Fitzpatrick. Here, Ryan, here is your old offensive coordinator. Here is your old offensive line coach. Let's see if we can make some magic happen or something like that. And not to say that the Jets' offense in those years was terrible, and I think a lot of it actually had to do with Fitzpatrick doing very I'm not going to say amazing things because he wasn't considered amazing back then, but he was let's just say he was pretty much what we saw for the Dolphins this year, with just a lot less bad, with a lot more bad than good. Because even back then, I remember watching those games against the Jets and thinking to myself, this guy is 30-something years old and he's running around like he's Michael Vick. How can nobody tackle this guy? And that's the same thing that we saw with the Dolphins this year, and it was a lot more fun to watch, don't get me wrong, but the same argument that was made with other people is that you can't go into 2020 expecting everybody to believe that Ryan Fitzpatrick is the franchise quarterback, and yet we are making moves like we're trying to keep him around for a good few years. Like Chan Gailey, and then Steve Marshall, and then we've got some other guys coming in. I know that, Chad, you have the list of coaches. We'll get into that, but I'm going to go ahead and push it to you, Ron, so far, and we will get your thoughts on the last season after this, but what exactly are your thoughts on what the coaching staff is going through right now?
Well, honestly, I'm just in general. Well, number one, it sounds like to me, like you said, they're kind of setting Chan Gailey's coaching staff together before officially Gailey is here. For whatever reason, I don't know why Gailey isn't here officially yet, but I assume that'll be very quickly. I'm just concerned about all the coaching changes overall. And the reason is we saw for the first time in, I can't remember when, since maybe the Jimmy Johnson era, where we actually saw true development of players happening in real time from game 1 or week 1 to week 17. I mean, you could see it. You could see it in the players. You could pick out the individual performances on both sides of the ball. You could definitely see it in the team. And I'm not really just talking about the in-game decisions, the game planning, things like that. I'm just concerned about the player development, because I know Flores wasn't individually coaching and training and teaching and in these unit rooms with 53 players. And well, it was really way more than that. It was probably more during the season, somewhere between 75 actual players from week 1 to week 17.
People, those guys.
So many people that we rotated through over the time. I know he wasn't. So all of this change makes me nervous, because we really had something good going on the player development side, and it's been so long since we've seen that as Dolphins fans. And I don't want to lose that. And I don't know, I'm just not sure about all this change in general. I'm very nervous about the team, us not seeing the next step in the development of these players because of so much change so quickly. That's really my concern about it right now. I'm not going to sit here and say Flores is making good decisions or bad decisions, because we have to see it play out. But I'm nervous about it.
That seems fair, because I had said, like, shortly after the season had ended, everybody was already screaming that Flores had blown it all up, and I literally sent a tweet out that said that just 2 days ago we were praising Brian Flores for beating the New England Patriots and ruining their first round bye chances. And so everybody should relax, but that doesn't mean that I'm above criticizing him. I am not going to sit here and say that, I'm just going to trust everything Flores does from here on out. Every coach is always up for scrutiny at all times, and that includes the amazing Bill Belichick, and we'll probably discuss a little bit more of that too, just because I want to talk about Mike Vrabel a little bit, and I remember him throwing Belichick's own shtick back in his face, and Belichick just losing it on the sideline. That was hysterical. But Flores, I still like him. I still think he's got what it takes to be a good head coach, because he's got all the fundamentals in order. And disciplined football is something we haven't seen from the Dolphins since even before Gase, and to some extent I would even say before Philbin, because Philbin, for all his gum wrapper picking up on the field garbage that we make fun of him for, his teams were not disciplined. They really weren't. Like, for a while they kind of were, and we were like, okay, so the penalties are going down, but then they started to slowly trickle back up, and when Gase showed up, it just exacerbated it even worse. So I don't think that the penalties are going to change, but yeah, the people that he's bringing in, I'm not sure that I like the decisions. I was okay with Gailey, but I was hoping they would get an elite offensive line coach like a Bill Callahan or something like that. I was really hoping that they would find, like, Wade Phillips just got cut loose from the Rams. I would have picked him up in a heartbeat to be the defensive coordinator. But whatever he's planning, I'm hoping that it has more to do than just finding guys that he's familiar with or guys that other players are familiar with, because we need to have a staff that is similar to what was accomplished in 2019. Again, you said it, Ron, just player development was such a monumental improvement in that area that it's hard. You said it, Jimmy Johnson. Like, I wasn't even a fan of football back when Jimmy Johnson was the head coach of the Dolphins. When was that? In like
the late 90s.
The late 90s. I wasn't even in double digits yet. So
yeah,
it's been a long time since that was the case. So Chad, let's hear your thoughts on this.
On the coaching changes, why, if I'm concerned or not?
Yeah.
Well, the thing right now that I'm not quite clear on, that I'm trying to wrap my head around a little bit, is Chan Gailey, because as we were going through these coaches here, the new hires, all the offensive ones are linked to Chan Gailey. It looks like the quarterback coach is Robbie Brown, who's linked to Chan Gailey, and Steve Marshall is the newer offensive line coach we just brought in, who has history with Chan Gailey, which to me signals he's obviously going to be, who is running the offense is going to be Chan Gailey.
So it's basically, from what you're saying, it's basically the Adam Gase thing, except instead of Matt Burke running the defense, it's Chan Gailey basically doing the offense, and Flores is going to focus on defense almost.
Yeah, it would be my assumption based on the history of these coaches that Chan Gailey picked these coaches, not Brian Flores. I mean, obviously Greer and Flores had to agree to it, but it's no secret they're bringing in people that Chan Gailey has history with on offense. So that would signal to me that's probably the guy he's wanting to have on his staff. And I would think that it's Flores who's wanting to bring in the defensive coaches, which is fine. I don't particularly have an issue with Chan Gailey. I like the fact that he's got a lot of experience because I think that helps Brian Flores as a head coach, because Chan Gailey has, held the head coaching position a few times, and I think he'll have some expertise to help Flores out. And I really like the idea of Chan Gailey's experience working with a really young quarterback, be it a new draft pick or Josh Rosen. And I was just talking a little bit with Ron before the show. We kind of both are in agreement. That's why Chad O'Shea is gone. Is the Josh Rosen experiment didn't go as planned. And so I think that's in part why Flores wanted Chan Gailey. He wanted a guy in here he felt comfortable with developing a quarterback. With that said, the curious part to me is the Jim Caldwell thing. Now, I know Jim Caldwell left the team last year with health complications, but what really surprised me is in the last week or two is Jim Caldwell was interviewing for offensive coordinator jobs. Now, I don't believe he took one, but I'm trying to figure out what happened over the year here. That why wouldn't Jim Caldwell come back here to be the offensive coordinator if that's who Flores wanted last year? And was Chan Gailey not interested last year, or did Brian Flores not ask Chan Gailey last year? And so that, to me, that's the question thing to me is what happened between now and then with Jim Caldwell versus Chan Gailey. And to me, Brian Flores obviously giving the reins to Chan Gailey. Now, maybe, as you mentioned, that's Ryan Fitzpatrick, Lewis. Ryan Fitzpatrick has a lot of history with Chan Gailey, and maybe the idea is that's a really good combo to put together to help develop a young quarterback. But it's curious to me. It really is that all those changes happened that way when Caldwell would have been available to come back as well. So there must have been some kind of something between Flores and Caldwell where Flores didn't feel comfortable bringing Caldwell back again. We won't probably ever know that story, but there has to be something there if Jim Caldwell is interviewing for jobs.
Or it's possible that, because here's the thing, Caldwell was what? He wasn't the offensive coordinator. That was Chad O'Shea's job. He was the assistant head coach / quarterbacks coach.
I think I want to say Caldwell wasn't Chad O'Shea promoted up when Caldwell left. I could be wrong on that, but I was thinking O'Shea.
No, O'Shea was hired to be the offensive coordinator.
He was okay. Yeah, that could be. I'm not sure, and I kind of view that Chan Gailey that'll be part of his role with the Dolphins. Will be assistant head coach with Flores, but I haven't seen that. I'm just assuming that right now.
Yeah, the way it's playing out, it almost feels like to me that Caldwell was the whole discussion from the get-go was that Caldwell would help Flores get used to being a head coach because he had the head coaching experience. Well, that season has passed. Flores has experience now, as little as it is, and it doesn't, other than the fact that he's worked with quarterbacks, I can't think of any, I can't even remember what Caldwell's official role was. He was just kind of there, he was a consultant almost.
I think the primary purpose for Jim Caldwell being added to the team last year was quarterback development. That was his history. That's something he's supposed to be very experienced at. And I think that's the primary reason you're seeing Chan Gailey come in here is, obviously to instill the offense, but the offense, I imagine, isn't going to be too crazy different from what Chan Gailey did in the past because Ryan Fitzpatrick was running it. So it's going to probably be that offense you saw when he was with the Jets and Bills and around that time frame when Ryan Fitzpatrick was quarterback in those teams. But I do think Chan Gailey has a lot of experience at both the college and pro level at developing quarterbacks, and really that's, to me, more important right now. Everybody's obsessed with who we're going to bring in. And I don't know that that's as important as who's going to be developing the quarterback of our future. Whether it be Tua, Rosen, Burrow, Herbert, whoever it is.
Definitely not.
I don't think any of those guys, any of them. Burrow, he looked good at LSU. I was making this point on Twitter. If the Bengals draft Burrow with the team they have in that division, they're going to get pounded because Joe Burrow is nowhere near ready to compete at an elite level in the NFL, as good as he's looked on LSU. he was on a really good football team, typically playing competition that wasn't as talented as his players. He'll be going to a Bengals team that's got to take on teams like the Ravens. I mean, that's going to be really tough sledding for a rookie quarterback. And so kind of the point I'm making is I don't know when you bring a guy in out of college, whether it's Herbert or Tua or Burrow, if there's that much difference really between them versus who has control of those guys for their first year or two in the league. I could even make that argument with Mahomes. Yeah, he's a very talented quarterback, but he had the privilege of being with, and he's with Andy Reid. Andy Reid's really, really good at developing quarterbacks through his history. And so to me, that's kind of the idea with Chan Gailey for Brian Flores, because one thing you have to admit about Brian Flores is he's actually being a head coach right now. He's not trying to run the offense or trying to run the defense. He's trying to run the football team. And he probably recognizes that him personally, Brian Flores, does not know how to develop a quarterback. So he needs to bring somebody in who has a lot of expertise at developing a young quarterback, because the fortunes of this team and Brian Flores' tenure here is going to center around the next year or two how they develop a young quarterback. And that, to me, tells me that Brian Flores felt Chan Gailey was the best person out there to do that, or who he trusts the most anyway to develop the young quarterback.
And Ron, just so you know, you can it's the same formula as always. If you want to cut in, you can cut in whenever you like.
Yeah, no worries. No, I was just listening to what Chad had to say about it. I agree. It's definitely a quarterback development situation, and Chad O'Shea got a chance to show what he could do to develop a quarterback. And I'm going to guess, and I don't know this for sure, I would wonder if he was one of the louder voices in the room wanting to get Rosen to begin with. Was he, I'll ask the question, and we won't know probably ever for sure, was he the pound your hand on the guy table saying, I want this guy, give me this guy, I can turn him into a franchise quarterback? And they thought, okay, for a low second round, we swapped out, we got a second round for 2020. He's worth a shot. And I still believe that he was worth a shot, even though it didn't really seem to work out. But if he was the loudest voice in the room on that, to just get him, then he comes in, and then well, we don't know. But what I'm saying, if he was, but whether he was or wasn't, he still had a shot to develop him. And clearly, either he wasn't the guy, or Chad O'Shea is not the guy to develop him, or a combination. I think that's part of why O'Shea is gone. And I think another thing too is, and I believe this, and I've really thought about this over the past, I'm going to say probably 4 to 6 weeks, as I've watched New England do the unthinkable for New England, and that was play worse football in the second half of the season over the first half. It was clear that they just weren't getting it done. Is that New England offense, as good as it's pretty much been and as clutch as it's been over the past, 10
2 decades.
Years. Yeah, 2 decades overall, but more in the last decade, say. It takes almost a perfect storm to work. That's the problem. You need a combination of backs doing a variety of different things. It's almost like, I'm going to just relate it to a movie. You ever seen the movie Ocean's 11? And as they describe how are we going to pull off this heist? And they're like, well, we need a bunch of guys doing a variety of different things, and it all has to work in conjunction perfectly. And that's what New England's offense is. You need a group of backs that all have kind of different skill sets doing a variety of different things. You need a set of tight ends who have just some different skill sets doing a variety of different things. You need a group of wide receivers with different skill sets doing a variety of different things. You need a quarterback, maybe not as good as Brady, but you need an 80% of a Brady at least, a quarterback who completely understands the offense inside and out, which is very complicated. Then you need somebody like Josh McDaniels, which I know people don't want to hear this. No, he's not a head coach. Maybe he'll never be a good head coach, but the guy within that scheme and offense is probably one of the best play callers ever in football. He is just masterful at it. And even with Josh McDaniels, with pretty much 80% of a Brady at this point, when the personnel went away, they couldn't make it work anymore. They just couldn't make it work. And they just didn't have the players to run the offense anymore. And Brady wasn't as good as he used to be. So even calling the plays the way they always called him, it just wasn't happening. So you try and take that and replicate it somewhere else, like in Miami, for instance. You try and take Josh McDaniels out of New England and put him somewhere else. Sure, maybe he could even take Brady with him, and magically Brady's just as good. You have to have a GM and a scouting team who understands exactly what they're going to need. All these backs, all these tight ends, all these wide receivers. It has to be put together so perfectly that I don't see it ever happening again in that style offense. I just don't think it's going to. I don't think it's going to work anywhere else. And I wonder, did Flores kind of realize that as well? That this New England style offense just isn't going to fly with us. And it's not like Flores doesn't understand the offense. He was the passing coordinator for a few years in New England. So he has a good grasp of what the offensive side does as well. I wonder if that is also part of it. It's just a combination of that with the Josh Rosen thing, the quarterback development. Chan Gailey was ahead of his time with the spread offense. Now we're grabbing college quarterbacks, and it's spread, and he knows he's getting ready to grab a college quarterback of some sort. They're all almost running the spread, so I thought it was a good opportunity. Maybe Caldwell just wasn't the right fit schematically for what Flores wanted to do. So maybe it was nothing personal or nothing quote unquote happened. Maybe he just felt like Chan Gailey was the best out there for what he really wants to do in bringing on whoever quarterback we're going to likely draft.
That's a possibility, but the thing that I'm wondering is that, number one, what I wanted to address is that if Chad O'Shea was the one pounding the table for Rosen, then it feels like it's out of character for his specialty, because he was the wide receiver coach with the Patriots, not the quarterbacks guy. So, I mean, and this is the thing that I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know everything about how football works and the politics of the coaching staff and how everything is in the front office, but the offensive coordinator, at least in my opinion, should be responsible for the production of the offense, not producing a star quarterback. The only thing that an offensive coordinator should have to really worry about with the quarterback is creating an offense that is best tailored for what the quarterback does best. Not improving footwork, not working on arm strength and accuracy. That is the job of the actual quarterback coach, which under my understanding would have been Caldwell, not Rosen. O'Shea, rather. O'Shea's job was to make an offense that would have fit Rosen, not to fix Rosen. And the way that and this is the other thing, is that, okay, so Chan Gailey was ahead of his time, fine, and he's going to run like 4 wide receiver spread offense. If that is the case, then this brings even more emphasis on the fact that I was saying earlier, is that the Dolphins needed to find an elite offensive line coach, somebody who is proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that this man knows how to make an offensive line work. Nobody's ever going to be Dante Scarnecchia, and there's no one except him who's going to be that good, but someone close to that. If you're going to run 4 wide receivers, that means that you don't have extra tight ends to act as blockers. Maybe you don't have a running back in the backfield all the time acting as backup, or maybe they're going to run a route, which means they're not available to block, which means it becomes imperative that that offensive line is not just average. It has to be a good line, which means it has to be coached like stellar coaching. And Steve Marshall, yes, okay, so he's familiar with Chan Gailey, and people are making the argument that, okay, so the 15 and 16 Jets were, 10th in passing and 11th in rushing, but then I looked it up on Pro Football Focus, what their actual pass blocking and run blocking was, and they're near the bottom of the pile. So that tells me, okay, so their rushing and their passing was good, but it's not necessarily because their line was just that spectacular. Any good offensive line, I know we question Pro Football Focus a lot, and we wonder why they grade things the way that they do, but generally speaking, if you had a good offensive line, you're not going to be at the bottom of their rankings. That's just common sense there. I know that they have questionable decisions, but if you're good, you're good, and they're going to at least acknowledge that you're decent. They're not going to put you at the bottom of the barrel because of stuff that they can't really control. And that's the part that worries me, because if you're going to run a spread offense and you're going to have wide receivers running, and believe me, I like the idea. The concept of it excites me, because we're still going to have Devontae Parker. We have Preston Williams, Jakeem Grant. We have Albert Wilson, maybe. We'll see what happens with him. And Isaiah Ford is number 5. And, of course, we're going to probably have another running back coming soon. I would love if it was Derrick Henry. And, yes, I do want to give him money because, doggone it, Derrick Henry is like a one-of-a-kind guy. But like, I don't think anybody's run like him since the days of Larry Zonka. But it's like you have to get that offensive line up and running. The offense will fail. Book it. Will fail if that offensive line is not fixed. It doesn't matter what kind of an offensive run you do. And if you're going to put spread offenses and you're going to send 4 wide receivers out there, you have to block with 5 guys, or it's not going to work. It doesn't matter what kind of a scheme you try to do.
Chad, throwing it to you.
Yeah, I mean, the offensive line is so hard. I know they switched the offense. Again, I think this is Chan Gailey wanting somebody he's comfortable with, but this probably, maybe in the whole history of the franchise, was the most devoid of talent we've ever had on the offensive line.
No, so I'm not going to question that for a second. It's true.
And we've had some real bad ones.
And we've had bad ones.
And this is the Donald Thomas type stuff. But
Dallas Thomas. Like, I still have nightmares about that guy. You know who's on the Titans offensive line? Jamil Douglas. What the heck happened to him? Sheesh.
But there's no doubt that this offensive line coach, that there's going to be a lot of pressure because we have to be bringing in at least a couple rookies, fairly high picks. I'd say for sure in the first 3 rounds we're going to draft 2 offensive linemen, maybe even in the first round. So it's going to be very important that our new offensive line coach is going to have to be able to develop those guys. And to me, the offensive line's a little easier to judge, way easier than quarterbacks, because you can, I think, use statistics a little bit more with offensive line because, you can get blown assignments on, picking up a blitz or something like that. But, your yards per carry running the ball, your quarterback hurries, I mean, those are pretty well directly correlated to whether your line's getting the job done or not. So I think the offensive line coach and line is one of the easier things to evaluate on something like Pro Football Focus. So I'm kind of in agreement with you, Lewis. I think that's a little more accurate than trying to evaluate a receiver or a back or a quarterback, because you often really don't know what route a receiver is supposed to run or what hole a back is supposed to hit. And I don't think Pro Football Focus necessarily knows that either. And so it makes it a little harder to evaluate them. But it's pretty obvious when somebody gets beat on the line blocking. So, that's kind of all I can really say about it is I think you may see all 5. Jesse Davis is probably the only one that might have a chance of coming back and starting, but I don't have him penciled in as a sure thing. It wouldn't shock me at all if we have 5 new guys on the offensive line this coming season, obviously with a new offensive line coach. And for whatever reason, I guess Flores just didn't see it with what our last offensive line coach did. Or, again, I think it's probably more so that Chan Gailey just wanted his guy. And that's who he picked.
I'll go ahead and say this. When Scarnecchia originally retired from the Patriots, and mind you, he was still like behind the scenes and everything, that's when Googs came in and took over for that job. It only took a few years for Scarnecchia to come back and fix the mess, because that little quick tenure for Googs in New England, that was the year that the first 4 games of the season, Tom Brady didn't look like Tom Brady because that offensive line suddenly lost all ability to protect him, and people were questioning, is this the end? I remember that.
Well, look, I mean, the one, very seldom do I agree with Omar Kelly, but one thing I'll agree with it. I think basically what Ron is already saying is you can't attempt to come in and model your team after the Patriots. You can't try to do that. And what they've done is unprecedented. And, this year, I think you've finally seen it. The thing about with pro football is the way they do the draft is it's not a snake draft. It's, the team that wins the Super Bowl has the last pick in every round. And that usually over time balances the league out because the teams that lose get the more talented players in the draft. And the Patriots have been able to not get the most talented players in the draft and continuously bring in good players. And, I think you could see Brady's declined a little bit this year, in my opinion. I think what I'm noticing is he is much less willing to take much for hits. Like Brady will just throw the ball away much more.
No, I remember I remember the last play of that game where Brady was like, who was it that said it? It's like I remember it was Seth Levitt from the Fish Tank, Jason Taylor Foundation as well, and he was joking, is like, could you tell how pissed off Brady was that they kept tossing the ball to him, hoping he would throw it down the field on that last play to desperately save the game. Like he was dodging the ball, he didn't want it.
He doesn't want to take a huge shot. I understand that because he's at the point in his career, if you tear your ACL or you hurt your arm or something, at 42, you're probably not going to rehab it and try to come back. That'll be it. But with that being said, the huge difference this whole year was with Gronkowski being gone. And the Patriots had very little skill position talent at all at wide receiver. And Edelman, their best one, he's been hurt a lot. He was hurt all season. He had injuries going on. And so they just didn't have the firepower. And they really don't have the draft picks and stuff to repunch that team very quickly either. And so, the Patriots, they're going to have to really hit well on free agency or hit well with some like late first and late second round draft picks, or they've got a ways to go. And so it'll be interesting to see if Tom Brady comes back. But anyway, with that being said, for the Dolphins, I don't know for sure they're going to completely run a spread offense, but that would seem to be the direction they're going. And so I understand that if they're going to do that, what you want if you're bringing in young players in any of the positions, running back, receiver, quarterback, line, is you're going to want continuity of people that are already there. And I think if you look through history, a lot of the successful quarterbacks, that's one of the most striking things you see is they come into a situation where there's good continuity. Like, Aaron Rodgers did really well because he came into a very good Packers team. Even when Marino came into the Dolphins, that was a team that was just coming off a Super Bowl. They had a really good defense, a really good veteran offensive line. And to me, that's the best thing you can do with a young quarterback is you need continuity. And so Miami doesn't have that right now because they were completely, gutted their team out. And so I think Flores did the best he could to bring in continuity. So they're bringing in the guys that Chan Gailey's worked with. They've got Ryan Fitzpatrick, who Chan Gailey's coached. And so at the very least, that offense they're going to be installing, everybody's going to be in sync on what they're trying to install. So at least a guy like Rosen or a rookie quarterback, they have a chance to be around people that cohesively know what they're doing and not just a bunch of random hires that are getting thrown together. They're trying to put together a system on the fly. So to me, that's encouraging. At least we've got a staff that's got an experienced, positional coaches, an experienced coordinator, an experienced quarterback to help develop the new players that'll be for sure come in with all the young draft picks.
Yeah, on offense. But on defense, it's a whole different story.
Defense is Brian Flores' show. Make no mistake. Brian Flores knows defense. You probably have heard me comment. I think he's exceptionally good at defensive backs. I think if anything that stood out this year, he was taking guys like, how many times were I like, oh my God, Xavier Howard's gone. Rashad Jones is gone. Bobby McCain's gone. So I'm thinking like, these guys are going to get torched. They're going to get torched. We've got the freaking guys off the street, guys off the practice squad.
And Nick Needham, who's awful preseason. We hated this guy after those few games.
Look at how those players developed. Eric Rowe, a lot of those guys were struggling. And to me, that's Brian Flores right there. He is very good at developing the defensive backfield. And he showed that. And I think he has some very creative ways he uses his expertise in the defensive backfield to throw some really unique looks and defenses out there. And so I'm really not that worried about that side of the football. To me, it's all on the offense because, look, the only thing we really have going for us is we're going to have probably the majority of our wide receiver and staff returning. And so we'll have that. But other than that, we're going to be getting a new running back. We're going to probably be getting, like I said, almost a whole new offensive line. And we're going to be trying to develop a young quarterback in that. That's a huge undertaking all at once at the same time. There's a lot of young, inexperienced players in there. So if you're going to do that, which is the situation Brian Flores is in, and you want to try to still win games, you have got to have a continuity in your quarterback, coaching, and offensive coordinator all together. So to me, that's what they're doing anyway.
Fair enough. Alrighty, so we already discussed the coaching staff, and now since we have Ron here, I wanted to go ahead and get his thoughts on the overall 2019 season for the Dolphins. I know that everybody's got like mixed opinions of it. I remember that before the season started, we had a show, I believe it was with you, Ron, where we basically discussed what should we expect from the team, what's the best route to go about it, and what should they have done, like with Josh Rosen and versus Ryan Fitzpatrick and all that stuff. So I'm going to go ahead, reflecting back on 2019, what are your thoughts?
I mean, it was interesting. At first, I was a little confused as to why we weren't really just going ahead and putting in Josh Rosen. I think me and Chad in that show said Josh Rosen will be week 3 preseason starter, and they're just going to go ahead and roll there. They're going to be close enough. These guys are going to be close enough, even though Fitzpatrick will be a little ahead that they can justify putting Rosen because he's a younger guy. We're developing, we're rebuilding, etc. But the gap was just so evident between Rosen and Fitzpatrick right from the beginning that you ended up being correct, Lewis. And we started Fitzpatrick, but after a couple of just drudgings from the Patriots and the Ravens, they decided to go ahead and I guess it's Rosen time, and it just wasn't working. It just wasn't working, and you could say it's the team all you want, but that Washington Redskins game proved that it wasn't the team, it was Rosen. He just wasn't understanding the offense, didn't have the ability to run it.
He couldn't figure out who the mic was, which is apparently
he couldn't even figure out. And I remember seeing out a tweet we were listening to, and I believe it was Cam Newton. He seems to be he likes to kind of break down things in that post-game press conference more so than other quarterbacks. Like he gets real X's and O's in it.
Was it Deshaun Watson? I think it was Watson.
I don't remember whether it was Watson or
because I remember there was a thing where Watson
it might have been actually
broke it all down.
Watson. Yeah, it was Deshaun Watson. I apologize. And he was breaking it down. And Deshaun Watson obviously has been in the league longer than Rosen, but he's still a fairly young quarterback. And I remember just breaking all that, and all I did was retweet and say, and our quarterback still can't figure out who the Mike linebacker is. And I mean, it was just clear that he doesn't have a grasp of just some basic things. It was clear for the team, and Flores wasn't there to tank. He wasn't there to go 0-16 and get the first overall pick. Him and the players and the coaches were there to win. Yes, the roster was stripped down, but not with the purpose for losing.
At least not on the coaching staff. At least not the coaching staff. I don't know about the front office, but
no, even the front office. They didn't strip the roster down to lose. They stripped the roster down to win. But stripping it down just meant you're not going to win right now, and everybody pretty much knows that. So then the coaching staff really took that, and the players themselves took that as even more of a challenge. Okay, you stripped it down. A lot of us are a bunch of kind of misfits, if you will, some XFL guys, some practice squad guys, some third string guys, et cetera, a lot of players that people said wouldn't even be on some NFL teams or definitely wouldn't be starting are here now starting or playing a major role in the offense and defense, especially on the defensive side. And the Dolphins, as the season went on, they took the challenge to heart, and all of a sudden it went from getting destroyed to getting it closer, and then they put in Fitzpatrick in the Washington game, and really, we probably could have won that game. I mean, we decided to go for 2, didn't get the 2-point conversion, lost the game. But then from there on, you were watching these games, and we started getting a little closer. We were 0-7, and then before you know it, we started beating teams, and we were 5-4 in the last 9, including wins against Philly and against New England in New England. It wasn't just like we were beating bad teams, but even if we were, we were a bad team. so
that was the idea, yeah.
Yeah, and so again, that roster was stripped down not to go 0-16. It was stripped down because it needed to be in order to build it for the long haul. No more piecing together 1 and 2 year old vet free agents trying to build a roster that's really a 6 or 7 win roster and trying to make it a 9 or 10 and sneak into the playoffs, which is what we've been doing. We were doing under Philbin and we were doing under Gase. We were doing both of those things for the last 7-8 years. That was the route we were going, and they finally decided to take another direction. And I get that Ross went out there and said, hey, we need a better team. I want to build a winner if that means I have to go 3-13 a couple of years. So I think that kind of led to, and I bought into it as well, that, oh my God, we're trying to tank, and I never thought the coaches and players were trying to tank, but I thought the front office was, and I really wasn't looking at it correctly. So as I kind of reflect on what we did at the beginning of the season, and some of it wasn't necessarily pre-planned. I don't think they, for instance, had no intention of trading Minkah Fitzpatrick. He was just selfish.
I doubt it. Yeah, he didn't.
He was selfish and didn't want to be part of what we were doing. He felt like, well, he was seeing the kind of the writing on the wall. He didn't really like the defense. He really didn't want to be part of a rebuild because he probably felt that was going to financially affect him on his next contract. And I really think that's where it came down to. So selfishly, he forced his way out. I don't think we ever intended or wanted to do that. So people could say we won that trade, we lost that trade, it was a break even. It doesn't really matter. We were forced into that trade regardless. Took the best deal we could get, have an 18th overall pick.
I didn't think we were going to get a first rounder out of it. Honestly, I didn't.
And there you go. On Tunsil, opportunity went knocking on our door, an opportunity we couldn't resist, because, and if you look at New England, they've really mostly never had a big time, top 3 paid left tackle. They've had some good left tackles over the years, but generally it wasn't that guy. And I don't think that was the belief in it. So then, and when Bill O'Brien offered us the sun, moon, and stars, like he was trading up to get, the next Andrew Luck for Tunsil and Stills, well, yeah, we took it because we were trying to acquire draft picks anyway, because we're trying to build this team in a different way. No longer, like I said, 1- and 2-year vets and overpriced free agents. Now going to try and build through the draft. And what New England has done, and this is a New England way, is it's a numbers game with the draft. If you go into every draft with 5, 6, 7 draft picks, you're probably going to always end up, when you reflect back 2 or 3 years later, like you had an average draft. But if you keep going into drafts with 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 draft picks, the numbers say, if you're halfway doing what you're supposed to do, that you're going to end up with a lot of starter guys, a lot of starter qualities, and then you have a better shot of pulling out some stars out of there as well. Because the odds just dictate that you will do that. So you continue to pile draft picks in that manner and draft at least decent or average, you're going to end up with more wins because you have more draft picks. It's just a numbers game. And I think Miami is going to continue on that route and try and build a team in that fashion. So I look at it.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah,
I just wanted to touch on, just because you're talking about it right now, Ron, that trade, the Laremy Tunsil trade, I just wanted to point something out to me that was astounding, because we got 2 number 1s and a 2, right, for him and Kenny Stills,
plus Julian Davenport and another.
Yeah,
I mean they're not going to stick around, but they did get 2 players out of it too. And honestly, Kenny Stills is an average receiver in the league, but with what had happened between him and Ross, he was going to have to leave. There just was nowhere to go after that fallout. Yeah.
But with that being said, that's maybe one of the biggest trade hauls that wasn't draft picks. Like, you've seen some big trades for the number 1 overall pick, but a player for picks, that's one of the biggest trades ever, to get that much out of a player. And just pulling up here to give you an idea, what Ron is exactly saying is you haven't seen New England getting the top rated tackles in these drafts in years, but they always seem to have Pro Bowl quality linemen. It's about the mistakes. And so here, just to give you an idea, obviously you probably know what I'm leading into. Who do you think was the number one penalized offensive tackle in the league for false starts?
Tunsil.
Do you want to know by how much? Laremy Tunsil had 14 false starts this year. The second highest was the Seattle tackle, who had 8. 14 false starts alone. And he was the number 1 contributor to the Texans being one of the most penalized teams in the league. And the reason I'm bringing that up is I know he's talented, but look what we got for that guy, and we just sent a guy who is by far the worst at the league at committing penalties for you. So to me, that
pre-snap penalties was always a problem with him.
Yeah, and so to me, that's that's an unbelievably good deal for the Dolphins because you just got rid of a false start problem and got a ton of draft capital. So anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Ron. I wanted to just elaborate on how good of a trade that was for the Dolphins.
And then the other thing I'm gonna cut in now is like, let's not act like, oh, it's a late round pick, so it doesn't really matter. No, listen, or I shouldn't say late round pick. It's a late first round pick because it's gonna be what 26. I don't even know, but it's like that's still the it's still the first round. For God's sakes, that's still there. It's good enough to make a whole announcement about it with the 26th pick in the 2020 NFL draft or whatever. So that's still like, it's not like it's a trash player because it's late in the round. It's still going to be a top 32 guy in the entire draft class where there's going to be over 100 people picked.
Absolutely. And it definitely matters. And plus, we always get another year to root against them again. Maybe they fall apart.
Yeah, that's true. We got another one for the next one.
You can justify that trade right now if it was just the 1 and the 2 and saying, well, look, Ryan Hill's had all those penalties. He's coming up at the end of his contract, so he's going to want a massive cap hit, and that it's hard to give that much money to a guy who struggles with penalties. You can argue that a 1 and 2 would make sense, for the Dolphins. Like, well, I could see that because you're getting a rookie who's going to have a 5-year deal that's going to be reasonable and plus the 2. But we're getting 2 number ones. That's quarterback type trade value there.
Absolutely.
You're getting 2 at worst top 32 players. At worst, that's just Texans win the Super Bowl. And for all we know, especially with the way the Titans are looking right now, that's going to be some tough sledding for the Houston to even win that division next year. Who knows what that second pick will be in 2021. So to me, that was probably the best trade for the Dolphins in history that they've ever made in terms of value.
Absolutely. It's one of the best trades any team's ever made, honestly. It just is. Or on the other side for Houston, one of the worst trades a team has ever made. But I'll wrap it up quickly on the 2019 season. I just want to emphasize again the development of the players, especially on the defensive side. But let's not skip on the offensive side.
Devontae Parker, Mike
Devontae Parker. I mean, if anybody didn't think that was real, Stephon Gilmore, probably the best cornerback in this league, top 2 or 3, whatever you want to argue.
I won't make him number 1, but close.
Yeah. Let's just say he's number 2, 3, 4, whatever. They decided the strategy in this game was, we're going to take out their best receiver by just one-on-one, and that allows us to do so much. Stephon Gilmore's assignment was to minimize Devontae Parker,
which seems like it should be easy.
He could not do it. He couldn't do it. He realized that that Devontae Parker could go over on the top of him. So then he started trying to play him with cushion, and Devontae Parker was just running beautiful routes, beautiful comeback routes. He was so scared of Parker either running by him, mossing him, and then he kept on coming back. I mean, the guy, you could see the frustration on Stephon Gilmore's face. No one did that to Gilmore the entire season. Not even close. That was just the ultimate. And it looked like that maybe we were going to start to see some Parker issues because he had that concussion. And I thought, oh boy, here we go.
Here we go.
I thought maybe they were going to shelve him because they've been shelving everybody else. Oh, your toenail looks a little weird there. Okay, you're on IR for the season. I mean, that's the way it went with some of these players. They didn't do it with Parker. They let him back out there and let him play. And boy, what that has probably done for his confidence.
What happened? Seriously, I don't understand what triggered. Suddenly, it's like, oh yeah, I was a first-round draft pick. Maybe I should start acting like it.
I have to believe a lot of that had to do with, and we had signed him to a 2-year deal, so it's not like he was, going out there on the last year of his contract to try and go out there and get a big deal. We had re-signed him at the beginning of this year before the season even started. This coaching staff, whatever. I mean, there you go. Recognition of what you have in a player, and then not only recognition of what you have, acting on that, taking the chance, re-signing him to a 2-year deal after he had a less than mediocre career so far in Miami, and then promise that you can develop, and then coming through on that development and seeing that manifest itself on the field in a player. We saw that with Parker, and we saw that with Gesicki, And we saw that with a multitude of defensive players that most people have never heard of. Some of these players we hadn't heard of the day they stepped on the field. I'm like, who is this guy?
I'm gonna bang the drum for Nick Needham all year.
Nick Needham and many others in that defensive backfield, especially to Chad's point, especially in that defensive backfield. But then let's not forget about the players that we already thought were good that really thrived on there. Raekwon McMillan and Jerome Baker. When's the last time we felt good about a couple linebackers on this team? It's been a while that we felt good about the way two linebackers were playing. I mean, Baker looked pretty solid. McMillan, I was starting to wonder. I was wondering if he was even going to be on this team.
You know what? I'm gonna chime in on that because it's the same thing as before. The same crap as before. We were trying to use McMillan as a sideline to sideline cover tight ends linebacker, which again was never his MO. And now they made him the run stuffer that we've been looking for years, and look at that. Boom, he looks good.
And it was just exciting to see. That's why I said I'm a little nervous about the coaching changes. But if the coaching changes don't affect that negatively, and we continue to see the development of these players and many others that are going to come on this team, because this roster is still going to have a decent amount of transformation in the offseason with so many draft picks coming in and so much room in free agency. Not that we'll spend it all or use it all, but we're not going to just, you're not really going to be able to use that much free agency money. And I don't think they will, because there's the floor thing kind of doesn't come into play. Like after 1 year, there's like a certain amount of years before you start to hit that floor to where you have to actually start writing checks, etc. So I just think that to sum it up, the most exciting thing was the player development. That was the number one thing I saw. It wasn't Ryan Fitzpatrick. It wasn't beating the Patriots. I mean, all that was exciting little wins. No, it wasn't.
Come on, man. Come on.
For me, it was the player development because of what it possibly could mean for this team, and that it could possibly be a sign that we finally have the right coach. Possibly. I refuse to get excited about anybody anymore, but I'm hopeful that we actually have the right coach this time. And I'm hopeful that this can just continue. And with some better talent in some of these areas, we could really make some noise. And then obviously, it's going to come down to quarterback, because we could build the line all day long, but building a great offensive line with no quarterback is the same as buying the best safe in the world, but it's empty. There's nothing in it. Who cares how good your safe is? There's nothing in there anyway. We need to hopefully draft and develop the quarterback of the future, a top 10, maybe dreaming top 5 guy, but at least a top 10 guy.
Okay, Ron, I'll ask you real quick.
Who's going to bring this into the next decade?
I'll ask you real quick then. You're the Alabama guy. You know what I'm going to ask you.
What are you going to ask me, Tua? I just want to see the medical on Tua. I want to see what's going on with that hip. That's what everybody, I think, is kind of in the wait-and-see mode there. I know that he has the ability to be a very good quarterback. I believe he seems like a fairly pro-ready guy as far as his skills and ability. His work ethic, and everything that you want a quarterback to be, his leadership. All the important intangibles are there. The arm strength is there. Obviously, he can run a more spread offense. It's a lot of what Chan Gailey runs is a lot of what he ran in Alabama. Now, I'm not saying that's why we got Chan Gailey. I don't want to say that, but it's similar to a lot of what he ran. So he'd be able to run what Chan Gailey can run, obviously. But I think everybody's just kind of waiting and seeing on that medical. And then we don't even know if we'll end up with them. Maybe the Dolphins don't even want them. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know what the Dolphins want to do, because they don't even know what they want to do. The process has just started when it comes to the draft and really looking at these guys. They've looked at the tape, and they've gone to some games, and that's where it ends. So now it really begins over the next few months. They've got 3 months to really put their draft boards together. So how can we pretend we know what they will or won't do when they don't even know that yet?
Well, what I'm asking is, if let's say that the hip is 60% it'll get better, 40% he'll be a diminished product, would you still take that shot with number 5 overall?
Yes, I would. because we've seen other top first round picks just not work out. Even many times, even in some of the top first round picks, it's still almost a 50-50 probability. We've seen first and second round quarterbacks be a 50-50 probability. Heck, man, even the Rams took what? Goff, I think that was the number one, and then Wentz was two. I mean, they took Goff number one overall, gave him a bunch of money, and now we're looking at him like, maybe he's just kind of average. Ryan Tannehill looks a lot better than Goff right now. Yes, I think it's worth it because if you believe he's the guy, if the Dolphins believe he's the guy, then I think it's worth the shot. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But you got to keep trying. Don't put square peg round hole for too long. If it's not going to work, you move on, try and find another. If they believe he's the guy, I think you take that shot. If there's somebody else you like is good, you don't.
Do you believe he's that guy?
I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure because I'm very nervous about the medical. If it wasn't for the health, I would say absolutely he is the guy. But I don't know that he's the guy over Burrow. I don't know that the NFL feels like Burrow is the number one overall quarterback. I keep saying that. And
I'm going to go ahead and say it.
At me on Twitter about it, but we'll see what the NFL truly thinks about Burrow.
I'm going to go ahead and
say it.
I'm going to go ahead and say it. And this is the same thing that I said about Baker. I got creamed for it. It's the same thing I said about Rosen. I got creamed for it then too. I don't like the demeanor of Joe Burrow. I don't know. Maybe it's the way he's being marketed right now and the thing with the cigar. And he's coming off as very smug. And that, like we've seen it with Baker already. It's coming back to bite him. And I don't think Burrow. If Burrow comes in here with that same mentality, I don't know who he is as a person. I don't know. I've never seen his interviews. I've never really watched him play like extensively, or I've seen him off the field stuff. But the way he's being marketed right now, it comes across as very smug, and I don't like that in a quarterback. It just
if we were drafting quarterbacks on personality, on those type of intangibles.
No, I understand what you're saying,
Tua
Ron.
all day. I'd want Tua all day.
Well, Tua, yes, I'm good with Tua, but
Burrow.
Yeah,
over Burrow. If we were drafting on those types of intangibles, but I don't know anything about Burrow to comment on. He was smoking a cigar after he won the national championship. He's a 24-year-old guy.
No, I get that. That's why I said I don't really know who he is, but he's being marketed as very smug.
After he won the Heisman, after he had possibly the best season of any college quarterback in the history of the game, I'd be smoking a cigar too. I'd feel pretty good at that moment as well. I don't know if that. I'm not sure. We'll see. You know what? The NFL teams are going to interview him, and they're going to do more than interview him. They're going to talk to the coaches over at Ohio State. They're going to talk to the coaches at LSU. They're going to talk to his high school coaches. They're going to talk to everybody because that's what they do, and they're going to get a read on this guy and see what his leadership, his social skills, and if he has a true smugness, quote unquote, that perhaps might rub some teams the wrong way. But
because I'm watching what I'm seeing with Baker, and it's like now seeing that because Baker was supposed to be the guy, he was going to be the generational quarterback that was going to take the Browns out of purgatory, and the same thing that I was honestly expecting is that we're knowing Baker more for his mouth than for his ability.
Yeah, that's true, but that still hasn't, because we saw Baker have a great first season there, a great rookie season. He came in and he had one of the best rookie seasons the quarterbacks had in the NFL. Second season, he just didn't take the next step. He had a sophomore slump. I think, was there some cockiness involved in that? Well, I guess that's possible. The whole team was kind of cocky. They don't have true good. Again, a guy like Tua, man, that guy's a leader. I'm telling you right now, that guy is an unselfish leader. He wanted, and why there was so much contradictory information. I had people DMing me saying, I've got good sources that tell me Tua's staying. And literally like 10 minutes later, somebody else, I've got hardcore sources that say Tua's going. I'm like, what? Are they just leaking different things to different people? No, what it was is Tua, with everything in his heart, did not care about, I need to go get paid, I need to go get money, I need to go to the NFL right now. He wanted to come back to Bama so badly and play his senior season to rectify what happened, to right the wrong, to win the national championship. And the NFL thing just wasn't that important to him. So much else was more important to him. Man, that's a guy that I'd love to have as quarterback. But everything in this world for his particular situation was screaming, don't do it. There is so little chance with your injury, and that is the riskiest thing in the world. You could never end up never being in the NFL, never get one contract, never get a penny. It was really a possibility for him. No chance in his situation that he can go get the insurance to protect himself against injury. It just wasn't possible in his situation. That's a guy I'd like. However, I don't mind a guy with some smugness on him if he can show me he can play. I think Baker will probably have a comeback season somewhat. But you guys know I like Tua. You guys know I've been pounding my hand on the table for Tua the whole time. So maybe I'm trying to, talk it down a little as to not be a crazy Tua fan and drive everyone nuts.
The cult of Tua, yes.
Yeah, to be part of the cult of Tua. I probably have been sucked into that cult of Tua a little bit. I want to see how the medicals go. If he gets cleared completely on the hip, I really hope we go get this guy. And I have no problem moving up for him, because if you had told me, right, if you thought that Tua was as good as Burrow and it was a 50-50 even split, so are you telling me that you wouldn't take Tunzel and your 5th overall pick and go get Tua at number 2? Because that's pretty much what we're talking about doing. Because those picks aren't there without that trade for Tunzel. So would you be willing to take Tunzel, Mr. False Start, and the 5th overall pick and move to 2 to go get a quarterback that could be leading your franchise and be a top 6, 7, 5 guy for 15 years? Heck yeah, you would, and most teams would. So I have no problem. I understand we have a lot of holes. I have no problem wrapping some picks up and going up to number 2 to make sure we got Tua. And if for some reason Cincinnati decided to go in a different direction and they felt like Burrow was a little better than Tua, you're there to take him as well. I don't have a problem with it, but I know a lot of Miami Dolphin fans want us not to do it. They want us to sit tight because they think we can. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. We're going to find out.
Mr. Ronabom?
Right now, in terms of looking at the quarterbacks, that's kind of what we're talking. I only think there's 3 quarterbacks that are first-round quarterbacks, and that's Burrow, Tua, and Herbert. Personally, I think Herbert's probably the most NFL-ready of the group. He's played on some Oregon teams that weren't outstanding relative to a team that Burrow and Tua have played on. And he's been pretty consistently a good quarterback.
It looks like he has the lowest ceiling of the 3.
I don't think so. I think he's got the best arm of the 3, the strongest arm. I think he's got the best frame for the NFL of the 3. But again, kind of where I was going earlier, I think people get so caught up on it being magic. And I think so much of it is about the situation you put a young quarterback in and who develops them. And so I'm kind of along the lines of, give me any 3 of those 3 and let Chan Gailey work with them, because where the Dolphins are right now, I don't see any quarterback coming in and starting for Miami next year that's a rookie. I think they're going to learn whoever it is. And so I guess the question is who do you feel the most comfortable developing? Miami, I'm very against trading up for Tua because I don't think you need to. And the reason is, in today's NFL, you simply cannot afford to not win now. And very, very few teams are in a situation right now where they can afford to trade up a lot to get Tua. And you're talking a lot because every team in front of the Dolphins are not taking Tua. There's no way. The Redskins just took Dwayne Haskins, who, by the way,
that's Dan Snyder's pick. They're not getting rid of Haskins.
Well, I'm just pointing out they're not drafting Tua. They're just come off a terrible season. They're trying to get back to being good again, and you don't get good again by drafting quarterbacks year after year without developing at least one of them. So they're not going to. The Giants are not drafting Tua with just drafting Daniel Jones. I don't see it. The Lions, I don't think so. I don't see them because Patricia's in trouble. He can't afford to have a losing season right now.
Hey, Chad,
Yeah.
Can I interrupt you and ask you a few questions real quick?
Yeah.
Chargers at 6. Let's say they trade Rivers. I don't even know if Rivers may be a free agent. Maybe they don't trade. Chargers at 6.
I think Rivers is done.
You can't see them trying to jump up above Miami. Remember, this is the whole game with like Gase and Rosen and that whole year where we fooled the NFL and everybody thought we wanted a quarterback, so everybody started jumping ahead of us. If somebody wants Tua, they're going to try and jump ahead of us because they think Miami will draft him. So if the Chargers want Tua at 6, they will jump up to New York or Washington.
No way. I would laugh.
Panthers at 7, they have a double opportunity because they're going to get a decent amount for Cam Newton if they want to move on there, which it seems to me with the fact that they moved on with their coach, they're willing to now move on from Cam Newton. They will have some power, and they're sitting at number 7.
Maybe.
I mean, I really think, I'll be honest with you, I think if the Dolphins want Tua, they can't sit at 5 because any other team who wants to do it, there's only a couple, but it only takes one, is going to decide I need to move up a few spots and go get him because I know Miami will take him at 5. He will not be sitting there for me at 6 or 7. I really, truly feel those two teams, especially Carolina, could be a threat. Could be. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Miami can sit at 5 and draft Tua, and no one will jump up there. I disagree with that one, but we'll see how it plays out.
Here's the reality of the NFL right now. Freddie Kitchens just got fired, and he had Baker Mayfield, right? 1 year gone. You do not have the luxury anymore in the NFL. You're looking at these assistants getting fired all over the place after 1 year. You do not have the luxury to fail in the NFL. And anybody who drafts Tua, you're rolling the dice for what? Anybody who tells you that you're going to know in April if Tua is going to be able to successfully handle playing quarterback on that hip, they're full of it. His medicals may look promising, but there's no way he's going to be a feasible starting quarterback in 2020.
I agree with that.
You're looking at drafting a player who won't even contribute to your team until 2021.
The Giants were willing to do it. I mean, nobody thought Daniel Jones was going to come in and start shredding it in the season, including the Giants. They even said openly, we did not think that was going to happen.
No, but he was healthy. I just don't think Tua.
That's true.
To think Tua is physically going to be ready to play in the NFL in 2020, and you're drafting him with that idea that he's going to start opening day for you, that would be crazy. Miami's one of the few teams right now that has the luxury of the coaches are secure enough, and they've got some quarterbacks in place they're okay rolling with. And they've got the draft capital. Miami can draft Tua with the 5th overall pick and just let him sit for the year and be pretty comfortable. Not very many teams can do it. The Chargers absolutely can't do it because the Chargers were supposed to win or at least be very close to winning the AFC West this year, and they were not even close. They looked terrible. And so you go get Tua with the Chargers, and is it Anthony Lynn? You're the head coach of the Chargers. Can you afford to not have that pick? Because you're going to have to give up quite a bit because those are blue chip players right now on the board.
What do the Chargers even have to offer? They only have the one draft pick for the first round, and then what? The first rounder, and then what?
Next year's first round, second rounders.
But that's a lot to mortgage.
We saw Atlanta move heaven and earth to go get Julio Jones. I mean, they practically had to trade their whole draft, and that was for a wide receiver. We saw Philadelphia move up quite a bit.
Yeah, but you're talking about players that come in and impact immediately. If you're a coach or you're a GM and you're going to trade a bunch of capital, you need that guy to be a star almost immediately.
That would be like giving your whole draft to the Saints to trade for Ricky Williams, and Ricky Williams didn't play for a whole year.
And going in, he's not going to play for that whole year. And so that's tough to do, to trade, to give up a bunch of picks to move up and be in the position where you're secure enough that you can sit for a year. Because if I'm a coach or a GM right now and I'm looking at Tua, I'm thinking, God, if I give up a bunch of picks, go up and get this guy, probably what I'm really doing is I'm drafting him for the guy who's going to replace me, who's going to come in and coach. That's who's going to be getting Tua.
I would say and then I'm going to let you have it because I keep interrupting you, Chad. But I will say Carolina, of every single team in the NFL, is the one to watch in March. Let's see what they do with Cam Newton. If they move on from Cam Newton, they can sit a guy like Tua because they have Kyle Allen and he's shown that he can play competent football. I believe that
they're
the most likely candidate to go up and jump just 3 spots up to 4 with the Giants, who aren't taking a quarterback.
Right.
To go, I think they're the ones that somebody would want to jump in front of Miami because they're so nervous Miami would take Tua if they want and like Tua. I think the advantage, Chad, and where you may end up being right is there's a third quarterback in the mix here that somebody might really like in Herbert. If you figure Burrow number 1, somebody else might decide, you know what, I like Herbert. Now you're going to need, if you're not going to get Tua, you're going to need 2 teams to jump up ahead of Miami. And we're in that case, you're probably right. That's very unlikely. But 1 team, I think Carolina is the one to watch in March, what they do with Newton. If they move on from Newton, get a decent haul for him, which they may, because there's a team or 2 out there that they're a good team with they need a starting quarterback. Heck, the Chargers might just go ahead and trade their pick away to go get Newton. That pick may be gone.
I don't disagree.
Carolina would be the one to be nervous about, but maybe they like Herbert instead of Tua, and then we don't have to worry about it.
I just think so. You're a new coach coming into Carolina. Carolina needs a fair amount of things. They weren't that competitive a team this year. Again, you're going to have to give up. Let's say you're going to trade with the Giants. You just kind of look at the top 5 players in this draft. Going from 4 to 7, you're missing out probably on one of the blue chip players. Or
Jeffrey Okudah, Tristan Wirfs. And there's Chase Young, guys, maybe. We'll see.
I think Chase will go in the first 3 picks.
He'll be the second overall pick, I think. Anyway, with that being said, my point is, if you're Carolina and they're the Giants, what are the Giants going to want back? Because you're Carolina again, you're a new coach. Your first move is to pick up a quarterback who won't help you at all in 2021 and may not help you in 2021. That's a huge risk to come in right away to roll the dice on. To me, the teams that are going to be most interested in Tua are teams that are comfortable not needing him in 2021 and have coaches who feel comfortable in their jobs. And so, the teams that would scare me would be like New England, New Orleans, because their quarterbacks are about gone. And Bill Belichick's not worried about losing his job. Sean Payton's not worried about losing his job. They might offer up their number 1 this year and their number 1 next year in a second or something like that to jump up and grab Tua because they're really interested in having him start in 2021. A team that has to win right away, I'm not too worried. That's why I found Miami with his medicals and stuff. I'm like, it could happen. If a team wants to make that move, I'm not going to be the one. We've got all these picks. We need to build our team. I'm just going to sit there at 5. I'm not opposed to taking Tua at 5, but right now I'm honestly between Burrow, Tua, and Herbert. I'm okay with any of those 3 guys coming in and working on developing them for different reasons. They're all different types of quarterback. I still think Herbert's the best suited for the NFL because of his size. He's big, he's fast, he's got a big arm. Tua's an amazing leader. I love the way he throws the football, but I'm also wondering, can you run with Tua? How comfortable are you having Tua take off out of the pocket and start running?
Does he know how to slide, Ron?
Yeah, he does know. He does know how to slide.
He knows how to slide.
Although he's not one that loves to do it because, again, he's a competitor, so he's going to want to try and push it.
But if I'm a defensive coordinator, I am tempting you to run Tua because I'm thinking, how comfortable are you with Tua taking hits? Because we're going to try to blow it. That's the nature of football. They want to knock Tua out of the game.
They're going to try and blow his head off, yeah.
And so I'm just saying, how as an organization and you putting that high pick into Tua, how comfortable are you, him running the offense, him running around and certain things like that versus a guy like Herbert who's a huge tank.
Well, I love him. I love him sitting behind Fitzpatrick for a year. Like you said, Chad, I have zero problem. You know what? I used to be so, oh my God, you got to get him out there. You got to play him. They can't learn on the bench. I'll be honest with you. We are seeing now in the NFL that I think we're going back a little bit old school again, where we're sitting a quarterback for a year and just letting them take those mental reps and letting them learn the NFL and letting them. Oh, Mahomes is just the best example. But we've seen it. I feel like there's a couple other examples recently, and I'm missing them out of my head. But there's a couple other examples recently where we've seen a guy just come in the second year and it just be like, wow, they really didn't hardly play at all as a rookie. Look at them, they're pretty good. That year, even just sitting and developing is great, and that would be great for Tua. Let him have another full year to heal the hip and everything and heal all his other injuries, the ankle injuries for sure.
But you know what?
I think it would be just double good for that. And hey, this fan base is going to get and stay behind Fitzpatrick unless he just completely goes the other Fitzpatrick and fails hard.
I'm not writing Rosen off. I know he didn't do what maybe they were expecting. But
sorry.
Here's the thing, though. Like, Rosen's costing us no money. He's a roster spot. But my thought is, with somebody like Tua, I'd like the idea of any of those guys. And I would argue, yes, Mahomes is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I would still argue that the primary reason that Mahomes is what he is because of Andy Reid. Because Andy Reid is very good. I would say if you give Andy Reid Joe Burrow, Tua, Herbert, he would turn them probably into pretty solid NFL quarterbacks.
Okay, but you know what? If we're gonna do this Tua thing, then this is when it becomes even like we've already been going ad nauseum about this. It becomes 3 times as important. You need to give him blocking. If he's gonna take shots back there, you might as well not pick him.
We're going to be working on that line before we're even working on who the quarterback is, because that line will not just
it becomes even more important for Tua, Ron, because he's already the injury-prone guy. If he takes too many shots, he's done.
It goes without saying we have to improve the offensive line. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is, whether it's, it could be Superman back there who's never going to get injured. It doesn't matter. Superman still couldn't get rid of the ball in time with that offensive line.
We had Superman. His name is Ryan Tannehill. Doggone it. Jeez.
That's true. Nice. But obviously we need to build the line.
No, and they're going to this year. And
I have no doubt.
I honestly think that's for free agency, that's where they'll primarily spend their.
I wish I could be as confident as you guys. I'm sure they're going to try. It's going
to be better than what they've had this last year. There's no doubt in my mind. They'll improve their line. I just think Miami is one of the few teams in the NFL right now that is high in the draft that can afford to take a pick like the 5th overall, draft Tua, and be comfortable because they have so many other number 1 picks and picks in general. You can afford to burn a pick if you're Miami and say, they're still basically building their team. They've done the strip down. They did an amazing job developing players, is what Ron covered. Now they get to actually add a bunch of talent. So it's still going to be I'm not expecting the 2020 Dolphins to come in and compete for the Super Bowl. I'm expecting them to become competitive. And it's a perfect situation to say we're very comfortable drafting somebody like Tua. I think they've got to try to get one of those 3 guys, though. No matter what you think of Rosen, you need to get Herbert, Tua, or Burrow and put them in there to develop with Chan Gailey, or at the very least, maybe Love. But they need to be option backup to Rosen, because I'm fine with Rosen and Fitzpatrick being our 2 quarterbacks for this year, but I want that 3rd guy in there developing this year. I don't want to wait until 2021 and try to go get somebody then. Because that's a whole different, scenario. Now you're 2 years in, and if you're Flores, let's say Miami only wins 3 games this year. I don't know how safe suddenly Flores starts feeling in year 3 and year 4 to now start developing your rookie quarterback. So I think they've got to go get one of those 3 guys at that pick, number 5, or don't discount Miami taking maybe a top player at 5 and trading up from 18. It wouldn't be too hard maybe to jump from 18 to 10 and give up a number 2 or something like that and still get somebody like Tua if he's, the value is there. But that's kind of where I'm at on Tua. I understand your thinking, Ron, because I think everybody wants him. And, let's be honest, if Tua wasn't hurt, if he hadn't hurt the hip, I think he's probably won like him and Burrow.
No, if Tua wasn't hurt, man, he would have won the Heisman. I don't care about Joe Burrow. Seriously.
Tua, I don't know. Joe Burrow had an amazing. Tua was having a great season, but wow, Joe Burrow came on.
But I think
he's
one or two.
Without the injury, they're 1 and 1A. I mean, that's just the way I feel about them. They're almost even for me. If it wasn't for the injury, obviously that injury is it's a wait and see on there. And even if they give him, like you said, Chad, even if they give him clear medical, like for the future, that isn't necessarily for the present. Necessarily, he is not going to contribute hardly at all, if any, for at least if the Dolphins drafted him. Now another team could draft him and decide we need him to play, and that could end up being devastating to him. He's better off going to Miami because he can sit. That might be where that might be a landing spot for him. He would really like. Not that they necessarily have a lot to say in that, but I'm not as sold on Herbert though. That I'm good with Burrow or Herbert. I don't know about Herbert. I watched a lot of him. I watched him play a lot this year, and nothing really just jumped off the screen for me like
He's
it does
boring, is what you're saying.
Well, he's not just. He almost looks like Ryan Tannehill light. You know what I mean? Like it's just. He almost seems like Ryan Tannehill, but not as good as Ryan Tannehill. I mean, that's. I mean, we just got rid of Ryan Tannehill. So, and I understand it's for more reasons than just his abilities. There was a lot there, but. I don't know. I'm not completely sold on Herbert, but I am curious what the NFL is really going to think as that development, or I should say not the development, as the process of analyzing, as the 32 teams are analyzing all these guys. I'll be curious to see what the NFL really thinks about all of them.
I'm just going to go ahead and say that I've been saying it's got to be Jordan Love. Just pick that guy, let him sit. I know, Chad, I know. But it's like, again, if your comparison for ceiling-wise, I've seen so many people say this guy could be Patrick Mahomes if he sat down. And I know you said Andy Reid is like your main reasoning for why that is. But if he's going to sit anyway, I would be willing to take way more of a chance on Jordan Love becoming Patrick Mahomes than I would on Tua staying healthy. That's just the way that I gamble.
He's like a Lamar Jackson for me. He's a guy that you've spent all three of your first round picks on, offensive line and defense and what have you. And now it's coming up to whoever the Super Bowl champ's going to be. Let's say it's San Fran's pick at 32, and you go up and take your, I think it's 5th overall in the second round and package it with somebody and go get them. You know what I mean? Before somebody else does.
I get it, but it's like if I'm
beyond
going
that,
to
he's not even a first rounder to me.
If I'm going to gamble,
the way he regressed, not the way he regressed.
Jordan Love is nowhere near NFL ready. You just have to understand that.
I get that, but that's the idea. If he's going to sit anyway.
Oh, yeah. If you got him in the second round and you want to see if you can develop him. But let me be clear. Like, Jordan Love is not Lamar Jackson. And I've said this before.
No,
like,
it was just talking scenario-wise.
I was just speaking to scenario, not necessarily the ability.
He's got ability, but if you want the best comparison that I've watched the film on, because I've been curious, because a lot of people are interested in Love. His talent is much more similar to Colin Kaepernick. That's what you're looking at. Lamar Jackson is unbelievable at running the football, maybe the best ever. Like you're talking like Michael Vick in terms of how good he is at running the football, how quick he is, how hard he is to tackle. Lamar Jackson is not that good of a sit in the pocket quarterback. He's nowhere near somebody like Aaron Rodgers, but he is so effective at running the football. Harbaugh is smart. He's just like, I'll just run him a lot, and he does. Lamar Jackson runs the football a lot. You don't have to be really good at doing fast, third and fourth reads if you can just take off and run, and very few people can tackle you. You're not getting that with Jordan Love. You're getting a guy who has a big arm. He's mobile. He has a lot to learn, and so you're kind of tossing the coin up in the air if Jordan Love ever is going to be capable to be an NFL quarterback. Whereas I think you can pretty confidently say if Tua gets back to health, absolutely Tua is starting caliber quarterback in the NFL.
But that's the problem, Chad, is like, what's the bigger if? Because, Ron, you know his medical history. How many surgeries has he had now?
He's had the two ankle procedures, which both of those, the reason he did it to that extreme was to be able to come back fast because it was middle of the season.
Those are minor surgeries.
Yeah, and now they fixed those to the point that those injuries will never actually happen again the way they fixed them, even though it's a more intrusive way of doing it. It's a way to, number one, get back quicker, number two, make sure it doesn't happen again. He had a knee injury. Not something he had surgery on, I'm aware of, unless he did something in the offseason. But if it was simply arthroscopic. And obviously the hip injury is just a complete freak thing. Like, that's the kind of hip injury you get if like you're in a car accident or something. It is not something you see happen in the NFL.
Bo Jackson injury.
So it's but we're
we're better now, but it's like, we're better now, but it's like, again, it's like this guy is so fragile.
That's why he does seem a little fragile. Yes, we're just gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see. I get that he seems fragile, but I think when a guy has supreme ability, and if he seems like he gets that medical clearance, I think you gotta grab him. Whether it's I'm fine with moving up. Chad says sit at 5 and take him if he's there. Whatever way, I'd like to see them get a hold of Tua over Herbert for me. If we draft Herbert, I obviously am not going to be very excited.
I don't want Herbert. I don't want Herbert either.
It'll be good to see us draft a quarterback and say, okay, this is the guy we're going to run with and develop regardless. I'll be definitely less excited about that, and I think a lot of Dolphins fans will, and some Dolphin fans will be excited about it because there's many Dolphin fans that don't want Tua at all. They don't like Tua. They think all he did was throw to a bunch of fast wide receivers in Alabama. Well, Mac Jones didn't have a whole lot of luck doing that, but okay. And
you can say the same thing about Burrow, though.
Yeah,
I mean, he's surrounded by an amazing team.
Exactly. So we're going to see how it develops. I don't know, and I don't think the NFL knows yet either. Honestly, I think that's the big thing. We're kind of arguing over, and I said this on Twitter, why I'm kind of disappearing off Twitter mostly until like mid-April. We're arguing over things that not only do we not know, I mean the Dolphins don't know. They just don't.
But nobody, even Tua
nobody knows.
know.
Even Tua doesn't know, and he admits that.
I will say though, in terms of the situation we want to be in going into 2021, I don't want to rely on Rosen. I want to give him every chance in the world to win that starting job against Fitzpatrick this coming year. But what would be ideal is Rosen progresses well in training camp. We draft Tua or Herbert, whoever, and we have 3 quarterbacks, and Rosen looks pretty good. So when we're going into 2021, we either have 2 promising young quarterbacks and we can trade one, or Rosen doesn't do well, at least when we get into 2021. If we have a healthy Tua, you feel a lot better if Rosen really struggles again in 2020. If you don't have that, I feel like we're starting back at square one if we're talking about needing to get a rookie quarterback who's going to be our quarterback of the future in 2021. This is our opportunity with Tua. I understand you guys don't like Herbert. Those are the only 3 I see maybe as the feasible starter in 2021 as one of those 3 quarterbacks. I don't think that the other second-tier guys, if you will, a Fromm or an Eason, I don't know that they're any better prospects than Josh Rosen already is. And so I hate to go draft a guy who probably isn't going to be able to beat out Josh Rosen. If we're going to do it, I would rather roll the dice on Tua, because I really do think even with what Burrow did, I still think Tua probably would have went number 1 overall in this draft if he were healthy. I really do.
I've seen people on TV saying they think that even if he gets the medical clearance, that they think even it's a possibility Tua could go over Burrow. I mean, I'm not the only one that isn't 100% sold that Burrow is the hands down definite number 1 overall pick, and there's nobody else that can come close. And it's not, we haven't seen the NFL do what they're going to do over the next 3 months in evaluating these guys. There's a long way to go.
Yeah, but I guess in summary, me and Ron are agreement. I think we're both pro draft Tua. I'm not against getting the guy.
Yeah, believe me, I'm not against drafting Tua either. It's just
I feel comfortable with again because of all the draft assets we have. We're the one team in this draft that can draft him with a number 1 pick and be fine with him sitting on the bench for a year learning.
What about going back and getting Tannehill?
No, that's not going to happen.
We're going to talk.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, but you know what?
It's not going to happen. But
we may see him at Hard Rock this year. That's what we're going to close the show on.
But let's say that the NFL does not sign a new CBA this year. That means no franchise tag and transition tag possibility is what that means. That triggers something. It means only franchise tag. Tennessee then, let's say they can't agree with a deal on Henry because he's going to want an Elliott deal. They don't want to do it. They have to franchise tag 1, and they can't afford Tannehill. What about bringing Tannehill back? Well, I mean, he'd be a free agent. I personally think if that happens, he ends up in New England.
You know how you guys know how
you guys
know how I feel about Tannehill. It cannot, will not, and again, I repeat myself, cannot happen.
Why can't it not happen?
The fan base will revolt, okay? I don't care what Tannehill did in Tennessee. They're going to remember what he was in Miami, and they're going to be like, oh, hell no, not again.
Tannehill is in the AFC Championship game.
They're going to say, hell no, not again. We've been here before.
With a possibility to go to the Super Bowl.
It was a year ago.
I understand that you think that the 3 or 4 idiots on Twitter are the Dolphins' voice. But I got to be honest with you. I'd say 98% of Dolphins fans are out there rooting for Tannehill.
Oh, we're all rooting for Tannehill. We're all rooting for him, but he's not here to hate.
Many of us secretly wishing we had just kept him, because I understand why we didn't. I mean, we had that conversation at the end of the previous season, Chad. We talked about what's going to happen with Tannehill. How's he going to? Is he going to get traded? Is he going to get cut? Will he be here? Will he won't? We had all those conversations. We all understand all the root causes of why Tannehill isn't here, and it isn't all because of play. I get that, but we changed that roster out like 92% or something like that. I mean, it isn't even the same roster. It's not the same locker room. It's not the same coaching staff anymore. I get there's a couple morons on Twitter that have the loudest voices, but I'd be honest with you, I don't think that the fan base would revolt like you think it would.
No, I think here's the reality. The tag's possible, but Ryan Tannehill is going to get a massive contract. He's going to get a massive contract because he is going to be the best available quarterback. You can argue
best available quarterback over who?
Beyond draft picks. Beyond, he's talking. You're speaking free agency or
free
possible
quarterback,
or
over
guys
Brady?
You could possibly trade for.
By far over Brady. You can't give Brady a massive contract. He's 42.
No way. There's no
Ryan
way.
Tannehill's
but you said available.
5-year deal. Available. He's going to get a 5 or 6 year deal that's going to be probably 25-30 million a year. Remember being guys saying that that's what Ryan Tannehill's going to get because he's got, for what Ron just said, he just led that team to the AFC Championship game. Who out there is a quarterback that can help your team immediately better than Ryan Tannehill right now? You can argue Tom Brady. I would argue no. Like, you're going to be getting a 43-year-old Brady.
Right now, if you had to pick between the two, like right now, tell me right now, if you had to pick between the two, you have two choices to bring to Miami: Tom Brady or Ryan Tannehill. I mean, you're going Tannehill all day.
You're going maybe a 1-year deal, but Ryan Tannehill isn't going to sign a 1-year deal. He's not going to.
But I will say this though: I do think there's a possibility he's willing to give Tennessee a little bit more of a team-friendly deal. He really likes playing and being in Nash Vegas. No time in his life has he felt so embraced and so loved by a city and by a locker room and by a group. It is like a world he has never experienced before, and the guy is on a high, and you can see it on the sideline, and it's part of why he's playing so good, and he won't get that. You're right in some ways, Lewis. He will not get that ever in Miami. He never got that before, and he never will.
He's not coming back to Miami. He won't come
he's
back,
going
and
to
they
be
won't.
a Titan. I was having fun. He is going to be a Tennessee Titan.
I was going to say, it's like, wait, are you serious?
I was having fun with it.
I mean, how could he not want to stay with that offensive line?
He's absolutely going to stay.
But he's going to get paid. Like he might not take the number one deal in the market, but they're going to pay him a 5 or 6 year deal and commit to him as their guy. They have no choice.
Absolutely. Because they'll be getting like, what do you think, like 25 to 27 mil a year, something like that,
per year,
which is probably a little bit under what he probably could get on the open market.
Oh yeah, there'll be teams that desperately want a quarterback now that would
probably pay
30. New England would probably consider it.
For Ryan Tannehill.
I'm still not convinced that Brady's leaving. I'm really still not convinced.
But you still go get Tannehill.
Well,
even if
Tannehill's available, though, you're getting a quarterback that can easily be your guy for the next 5-6 years. I mean, that's what teams are going to look at.
I think Belichick finally wins that. That's correct.
30-31, is that what Tannehill is?
Yeah, I think he's 31.
He's in his prime. He's one of the best quarterbacks you can get. I mean, he's looking good. Yeah, unless, like, he has some kind of horrific, like, throws 5 terrible picks in this championship game, he's going to get paid big. And so I 100% agree with you, Ron. He's staying with the Titans.
He's the Titan. He's absolutely like 100% going to be a Titan. I was just curious of what it would, what you guys thought about that. It's not happening. It's not happening. Hey, we let that walk out the door. He was on our team less than 12 months ago. That guy was a Miami Dolphin, and now he's a Titan, and that's it. There's no getting back the ex-girlfriend. She's moved on with a way hotter dude than us. Yeah. It's simple as that.
Well, and there's no way this team's picking up a free agent quarterback to start. I mean, we've brought in Chan Gailey. I think the team loves
Fitzpatrick is the free agent quarterback. He's already starting.
He's cheap. He's starting. He's perfect to help develop a younger guy. They're not going to go sign like Cam Newton or something like that.
Oh, no way. No way.
It wouldn't make sense.
No.
Well, Cam's not a free agent anyway, but I get your point.
Well, he's probably available, though. There's a good chance he's available, like, if you wanted to go get him. But I'm just saying, like, Miami will just stick with Fitzpatrick and get a rookie, and they're going to roll with that, with Rosen.
For the record, I just looked it up. The actual free agent quarterbacks that are expected to be available are Tom Brady, that's one. Dak Prescott, which I'm sure the Cowboys are going to re-sign him, but he's technically a free agent.
They'll take him.
Now that McCarthy is there, Dak is staying around. Yeah. He's not going to play any games.
Drew Brees.
He's not going to leave he'll retire as Saint.
He's like a Brady.
Phillip Rivers.
Who was the other one?
Phillip Rivers.
He could end up on another team. It's possible.
I'm not a fan. But.
And not that I'm saying Tannehill is not as good as him, because he's definitely better, but Jameis Winston.
Tannehill's the best free agent, officially on paper, the best free agent quarterback right
long
now.
term. I would say long term he's the best. But if it was a 1 year deal, I'm taking Breeze or Brady or even Rivers over Tannehill for 1 year.
I would take Rivers.
For
Rivers
1 year.
Is completely non-mobile. That's why they struggle, like completely. Slowest quarterback in the NFL. Tannehill can freaking run. He's a receiver in college, guys.
Yeah.
Did you know he was a wide receiver?
I could understand if this was Miami.
Wait,
year.
Chad, what?
He was a wide receiver.
Ryan Tannehill was a wide receiver in college?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
Never. You learn something new every day.
If this were Miami last year, prior to the Ryan Fitzpatrick signing, I could see maybe getting somebody like Phillip Rivers, where you don't have a veteran and you want to bring a guy in to play for you the next couple of years. Then I could see paying. Rivers is going to want quite a bit of money, though. Like he'll be demanding maybe like 20, 25 million. It'll just be a shorter contract, but he's not going to be cheap. And I don't know how eager the Chargers are to get rid of Phillip Rivers either. Even if they get a quarterback in this draft, again, you're dealing with a rookie, and this is not a new coaching staff in San Diego. They need to win right away.
It goes to your previous point, Chad. You're right. Like they're still their best chance to win, and they have a pretty good team. They just kind of had an off year.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't see him moving. So anyway, as you went through that list, Lewis, to me it's not even close. Like Tannehill's the only one in that list that you could bring in that you would feel comfortable
long term.
Kirk Cousins type thing.
Bill Belichick would give his left arm if Tannehill could come available and he could grab him. That would be absolutely as much as Tannehill has actually beat Bill Belichick. Are you kidding me? On top of the season that he's had, on top of his ability,
that's an awful job. That's all I can say is what are you going to do? So who's going to be the guy that gets stuck with that? Probably the rookie or the second-year guy now from Auburn they have behind Brady.
What is his name? Stidham or something like that?
Jared Stidham, yes.
That's
I mean, he didn't show – he was okay, but it's not like he's definitely not going to be Brady.
Yeah, I don't think that Belichick is sold that Stidham is his guy. He's going to – if Brady does move on, he's going to find another quarterback some way, somehow.
You give me any quarterback. How eager are you to go to play for the New England Patriots right now, the year after Tom Brady with that fan base? The expectation, like the Patriots were livid. Like they're like, oh my God, because they didn't have a first round bye for the first time in 2009. Like who wants to go coach and quarterback there? If you don't like get the first round bye, you are considered failed. And so like you're looking at that job, I whoever coaches after Belichick, it's going to be some rough sledding because what the Patriots have been for the last 2 decades, what they've created, has created a whole generation, like 20 years of fans and sports media that have no idea.
Spoiled, rotten brat.
Right.
Entitled as all hell. Fans.
Right. That's what it creates.
Everyone in Bristol, Connecticut, man. Everybody in the ESPN. They worship the ground Brady walks on.
You go in there and coach, and you don't make the playoffs. Do you realize like how harsh it's going to be like for those people, whether it's the quarterback or the coach? Your expectation is to compete, to win the division, get the first round bye, and compete for the Super Bowl.
Win the bloody Super Bowl every year, yeah.
Every year. And if you're not doing that, you are bad. They're going to be yelling, we need to replace them because this isn't Belichick and Brady. So for that reason, I think Ryan Tannehill's not stupid. He's like, hell no, I don't want to go and take over for Brady in New England. If I don't go 12-4, I'm going to be like smashed. Why wouldn't I stay here where they love me for making the championship game?
He's staying in Tennessee. I have zero doubt in my mind. They're going to work that out, and they'll probably end up just franchise tagging Derrick Henry if they have to. Yeah,
the thing that I find gratifying over this whole thing is nobody really knows the internal dynamics, but the Patriots had the quarterback. I mean, he's looking
Garoppolo.
Good. They had him, and they gave him up for a second-round pick.
Well, they would be Kraft. Kraft wasn't willing to get rid of Brady, and I believe that Belichick was ready, even though they've won a Super Bowl since and even gone to another. Believe that Belichick saw the writing on the wall with Brady. He saw this season coming before Brady did. And he was ready to go ahead and he finally had his guy after buying a bunch of houses, fixing them up and sell them. He finally bought the house he wanted to. Okay, I think I'm going to move out of my house and live in this house and sell my other house now. And Kraft wouldn't let him do it. Kraft said, nope, you're still going to live in this house. And you're selling the other house.
Yeah. I think
So
we
he
can
sold
call
him for a ham
Garoppolo
sandwich and moved
at
on.
least top 10. I don't feel like, I mean, Garoppolo's looked pretty good to me. Like, he's proven it full season now. Definitely would have been a nice transition for the Patriots to go from Brady to Garoppolo.
And in the few games we saw him start in the season that before Garoppolo got hurt, and the season where Brady was suspended the first 4 games, Garoppolo looked great in that system with Josh McDaniels. I mean, he looked better than he does now with San Fran.
Yeah, so that's going to be bittersweet for a while, I think, for the Patriots now that Brady's kind of getting into the end here. If Steedham struggles or whoever comes in and they have a lot of quarterback trouble, that'll be like the Drew Brees thing for the Dolphins. That'll be the next decade of, God,
this is what's going to happen. They will grab Phillip Rivers to be a stopgap, and they'll find some way to get the next guy. Like, they'll somehow find a way to jump up and get, like, Trevor Lawrence or something. That's just what they do.
I don't know, man.
We'll see.
That's not easier said than done.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, and
I'm sure it is, but it's like
we'll see.
It's what I come to expect. It's the same thing is that you expect to come like in spoiled, entitled brats in New England, and then here's us who have been like beat down so often that we just kind of expect to get whooped by them, no matter what.
That's the change coming out. Like you say, they get Trevor Lawrence. Well, what an awful situation for Trevor Lawrence to come in after Brady and be expected to immediately be going to Super Bowls. I mean, he's got some talent, but for him to become Tom Brady seems very, very unlikely. That very few teams get that luxury of going from a Hall of Fame quarterback to another Hall of Fame quarterback. It's usually doesn't work that way. The Packers pulled it off, but
San Fran pulled it off with from Montana to Steve Young,
and even then, that was not a happy marriage while they were both there together. They hated if they didn't like each other.
Brett Favre and Rodgers, same thing. Brett Favre's like, I ain't there to coach no dang, Rodgers. Yeah.
Most teams to pull that off is not easy, and that's why I'll always kind of relish that the Patriots kind of had that potentially in place with Garoppolo after Brady, and they waited too long. I would say. I guess they got a Super Bowl out of it last year with Brady, but
two Super Bowl appearances since they did that. But what do the 2020s look like for them? We'll see. I mean, they now have to go find at least an equal to Garoppolo. Yeah, to make it right.
We'll see.
For a quarterback, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and close out this show with the fact that we may very well be seeing Ryan Tannehill in the Super Bowl coming up. What the irony, guys, the irony that all it took was the same thing we've been screaming for all this time in Miami. Give Tannehill a running game, give Tannehill some decent blocking, and he'll make things happen for you. And
I was going to say, and people can say, well, any quarterback can do that. Yeah, really? Because Marcus
Mariota couldn't.
So, no, any quarterback can't do that, people.
Mariota did not
Tannehill was always a potential top 10 quarterback. He always had that potential if you gave him what he needed. People argued that. We argued it. And the Omar Kellys of the world and the Miko Grimes of the world and all these a-holes that infected our team, and guess what? We lost. They won. Tannehill was gone. And now look. That's all I got to say.
Believe me, I'm rooting for him, but at the same time, it's like I take some kind of sick, perverted satisfaction in being right, even though I'm wishing that I'd been right here, not in Tennessee.
Yeah. Isn't it almost kind of like you're rooting for Tannehill and you're wanting him to win, you're wanting to show.
And half of the reason we want him to win is just because we can just do this to the people and say, yeah, you were wrong.
But now it's almost like we're getting like you wanted to be right and you wanted to show them, but now it's almost like okay, haha, yeah, we get it now. We were right. You cannot actually win the Super Bowl, dude. We're good now.
Honestly, I want him to win. I want him to win. Doggone it, because I am
actually rooting for him to go all the way.
This poor guy. Oh my God, I can't even call him a kid anymore because it's like he's not a kid anymore. But it's like he had been brutalized. Murdered here in Miami he's been murdered on the field, off the field, character assassinated. I can't imagine being treated worse by anybody. It's incredible what happened here.
It's true. It's true. And one thing I'll say is Kansas City's not going to come back from 24-0 down with Derrick Henry running the ball. They're just not. No. That's not going to happen. If they get up big against, if they get up big against, get down big against Tennessee, that game's over.
Tannehill's going down. The Chiefs are nowhere near the defense that the Ravens are. I can say that right now. If the Chiefs need to score points quick, because what the Chiefs can't allow to have happen is even be tied or just like down 3 or something and get halfway through the third quarter because get ready for ground and pound. It's extremely difficult to stop. And they simply don't have the line compared to like the Patriots or the Ravens, defensively. And so what the Chiefs really have got to do in that game is they got to
score 40.
They got to make the Titans have to throw the football into the second half. If they can do that, the Titans don't have this high octane, go 4 wide and throw the ball all second half. That's not what they're designed to do. If it doesn't go that way, though, I don't think the Chiefs can stop that, get 3-4 yards a pop no matter what with Henry, and then break a few big runs with him. I think if that defense gets worn down a little, and this is actually an interesting game because the home field advantage could actually work to the detriment of the Chiefs, because I'm reading that we might get some bad weather. And if it's really cold,
that's not good for Mahomes.
No, because it makes it harder to pass. And that goes right into the Chiefs playbook if it's bad weather, because they'll be fine just pounding the football on the ground.
Yeah, you mean the Titans playbook?
Yeah, the Titans, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
In that situation, the Chiefs might we like the home crowd, but I'd almost be happier and warmer Tennessee so we can throw the football around and score points. So it'll be an interesting game.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
And so am I. So we went way over the usual Brawl Network mandate of like an hour, but you know what? This show was so much fun. I honestly wish we could keep going because there's still so much stuff I want to talk about. Maybe we can do another show later on early in the week, so that way we can still catch Ron during his bachelor days.
Yeah, well, my wife is still out of town. You catch me where I can be up at 1:43 in the morning doing a podcast.
I'm sorry, man. Again, I'm really sorry about that.
It's as if I'm in England and you guys are in the U.S. and this is what I have to deal with. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's okay. It's been a lot of fun. I enjoy it. I appreciate you having me on.
How much longer do you have before? So I know exactly. So when do we have to record the next one?
Oh, you got like another 8-9 days. I just can't do it Sunday night.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, we're not going to do a Sunday night show, but yeah, so we'll figure something out because I want you back because this was fun. It's been a long time since we've been able to do like all three of us, and quite frankly, there was some other stuff that I wanted to talk about, but we got so into everything else that we didn't really get a chance to discuss it. I wanted to talk about some of the salary cap stuff. I wanted to talk about more about some of the other coaching decisions and what we're thinking about the whole politics of the whole thing. Not in the sense of, Republican, Democrat, but it's like we're not bringing in like the old, it's like, politics. Yeah, it's not that kind of politics. It's like, but we're bringing in new faces that we've never seen before, and whether that's a good idea or not, we didn't get to talk about that either. So we got
an entire off season and there won't be any games played. So
yeah, I know, but we don't have a whole off season of Ron Canniff.
No, that's true. That's true. I had a lot of fun though. This was actually awesome. So,
And you look the most professional out of all three of us. You got you got your mic on there. You got the headset and everything. Like you look like an actual radio guy here.
Well, this isn't the only podcast that I do. Obviously, can I plug my other podcast?
Go for it. Why not?
Am I allowed? Okay, so I just want to plug the Twisted 10 podcast. It's a unique top 10 list show. There's about 86 episodes available right now. We've recorded 4 or 5. We'll be launching those soon. Relaunching, I should say, because I guess it pod faded for a bit. So go to iTunes, check out the Twisted 10, scroll through there, find some topics you find interesting, and just know that when we relaunch, I'll be one of the hosts on that show.
All right, sounds good. So I'm going to go ahead and call this show a good one, and we're going to go ahead and get ready to send this out to all of y'all. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll hope to see you soon. Hopefully we'll have Ron with us one more time before life comes calling back to him. So, so we'll see you all until next time. Good night.